What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, as we have important data coming out for tomorrow with the PCE data report, not to mention important news about Tesla and other things that are very, very huge. Before I begin the doubles information, before I talk about why tomorrow is going to be a very big day for the markets, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, I want to break down some very important developments right now. For Tesla's more medium term, as you guys can see, there is upside potential. Looking at the 4 hour, as we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure that is developing so far. It's holding out very nicely. All we're waiting for is the breakout, which is going to likely come in June. But here's the thing, the problem is for the shorter term, things are a little bit more complicated for Tesla as we have important data coming out and new structures developing. So I'll be breaking down more details about this in just a couple of minutes. Let me first go over some important data. So tomorrow is going to be Friday, May 31st, 2024. Please note that 1 hour before the market opens, we have the PCE data report. We have core PCE month over month with the forecast and a consensus at 0.3 to 0.2%. For year over year, for core, we want it to be around 2.7 to 2.8%, 2.6 to 2.7% for all items year over year. And then month over month, we also want all items to be around 0.3 to 0.2%. In my personal opinion, okay, when we look at the CPI data report, which came out for the month of April, everything was aligned with expectations. Am I saying the data is correct? No, guys, I'm not going to promise that or anything like that. But I just want to note that we have to go based off this data. And because CPI was decent on paper, there's a good chance that PC is going to be decent as well. So I can't promise that. I'm not going to say with 100% certainty. I just want to say that there's a very good probability that PCE for the month of April is going to be good since CPI came out that way. And we will see what the numbers end up looking like, but there's a very good chance things will be close to expectations, if not below them. That's the most likely possibility, in my personal opinion. But just to be safe, always be prepared for anything. You always want to be open minded as a day trader, someone that's like involved in the markets, and you want to be prepared for anything when it comes to the different contingencies that affect the markets. I'll talk more about those in just a bit. For earnings, do not forget that we just had Costco and Dell announce their earnings. So Costco, of all things, is actually down just a little bit, despite the fact that they had pretty good earnings, in my opinion. They actually beat on profit and sales forecasts, but the stock has pulled back from the record highs. I got a little pop and drop like move. Revenue is up 9%. They actually beat on EPS forecast, not to mention other things like that. And other factors look pretty decent in terms of their growth potential. However, it wasn't really enough to really wow investors. Things were just kind of close to expectations. And it wasn't really enough to get the share price to really start soaring. So that's what came out for Costco. Not horrible overall. And then we also have Dell. Dell did not do as well, in my opinion. So yes, they have nice improvements in their revenue at 6% year over year. Not bad, pretty good growth in revenue. Their EPS was decent, but there was an issue with the full story and the details of their revenue. This is what caused the share price to actually dip quite a bit. So their different sectors were not always as strong as what they could have been. Their AI server sales did not really impress investors. They did have a growing business, but it wasn't as like strong as what a lot of these investors wanted, and their forecasts were just so aligned with expectations. Not the strongest. We also saw some different sectors not looking as strong when it comes to their AI growth. And I just wanted to make it very clear that some things were just kind of so for them. Forecasts were decent, but it's because different sectors were not as strong as what investors wanted. That's why the share price is down quite a bit. So it is what it is, guys. We just have to continue forward despite that. Nonetheless, just remain optimistic. For what else is coming out when it comes to the fear and greed index, right now the market is getting very close to fear. We're currently quite neutral. So we're going to see, is the market going to shift into the fear sentiment, or is everything else about to shift? We'll have to wait and see. Right now, the greed is still making up the majority of indicators, although less greedy than before. And the puts and call option positioning is quite fearful. We're currently at 0.8 right now. We will see if this shifts or not, but it's going to be something that's worth noting. We are starting to see a lot more put buying, more shorts are coming into the markets, expecting more downside. Are they about to get squeezed? We're going to find out tomorrow. The VIX is at resistance at the daily 50 EMA, so we're going to be watching to see if anything changes right over here. That's going to be something else that's worth noting. I also want to note that when it comes to the options chain, at least for SPY, for tomorrow, we have over 550,000 of these calls expiring. The majority of them are out of the money. And we have over 1.55 million of these puts expiring, most of which are out of the money as well. With max pain being at 520 and a 2.79 put to call ratio, we will see what ends up happening from here. So it's very important for us to go over this. I think we want to see how things end up shifting. But for now, it's very important for us to be open minded with the way how, we could go either way. Will we see a lot of dropping in the markets for a lot of these puts to end up, a lot of these out of the money puts to end up in the money? Is that what's about to happen? Or are we about to see all the puts end up out of the money and more of these calls out of the money go in the money? That depends on what these market makers' intentions are. Now, when it comes to Tesla, we had some good news that came out. It wasn't really enough to cause Tesla to soar, but it did show some strength in terms of its technicals. Tesla's preparing to get a full FSD package approved in China, which is a great piece of news for them. The reason why this is good is because getting the proper and necessary approvals will allow them to deploy FSD and get a lot more revenue through this. Not to mention, a lot of developments for the data centers, a lot of AI growth and different things like that. That's going to be great for Tesla, but that's actually a big step in the right direction. And then on top of this, there was some more news coming out that the Tesla Semi is going to be featured in Germany's IAA Transportation 2024 event, which is great news for them. Registrations are now up 13% compared to last year. This is awesome because this is going to give Tesla a lot more excitement, a lot more exposure out there to different investors and different companies in Europe, which is going to be a massive market for Tesla semis, in my opinion. So this is another step in the right direction. That's why Tesla saw a little pop today. And that's very, very awesome news, in my personal opinion. Moving forward, we had about 78 million in volume, a little bit above average, and the short volume is actually kind of going down a bit to about 62%. We also happen to see a big shift right here as GLJ research did give Tesla a sell rating, which is not the best of news for them, but that was just a few days ago. The price price ratio is actually going up just a little bit. Tesla's building a little bit more strength than before. Fridays have a tendency of being green only about 49% of the time, so it's kind of 50-50. And we see more volatility typically during the first 30 minutes of the day, and also around noon and then around 2 p.m. June is also historically a very good month for Tesla, 78% of the time. Besides that, we're starting to see a big shift in sentiment. So what do I see for Tesla moving forward? What is my personal opinion of the share price? Here is my answer. So there's a bullish and bearish case for Tesla. It's very, very nuanced. There is a head and shoulders like structure that's developing, but this could be a trap for investors. If this wants to play out, we need the bearish case to happen. We need to see Tesla lose 173 to turn bearish, and yes, we could start dipping. If we're bullish and this is a trap and we're actually developing like a cup and handle like structure and we're going to get a breakout, I want to see Tesla hold above 180. If we hold 180, this is just a trap, then Tesla could start pushing all the way up towards higher levels like 185 plus. So break 180 and close above that, and Tesla's going to favor bulls more. If we lose 173, we're going to turn more bearish, and Tesla's going to be dipping down to fill this gap and likely see the head and shoulders play out. Don't be too kind of like fooled by the head and shoulders. There's a lot of traps in the markets. We also have a bigger inverse head and shoulders developing, so Tesla will eventually bounce regardless of where it goes. So I'm still very, very optimistic. But one thing worth noting is that wherever Tesla goes will be heavily dictated by what's announced during the PCE report. If we get a decent PCE, we could see Tesla try to push into the 182 plus area, if not 185. And a PCE is harder than expected. Look for 173. In my opinion, the odds favor, so long as there's no bad news for Tesla, because news has a big effect on it as well, that the odds do favor the upside. As long as we don't get any bad news, Tesla could be pushing back up to 180 plus, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens with PCE. But technicals do look kind of good to me. It does look to me like Tesla wants to push a little higher. As long as we don't lose 173, we are going to favor bulls. So we're going to give this some time just to be safe. Now, how about for SPY? How does SPY look in my opinion? Let me just pull up the 4-hour time frame. On SPY, we have a nice falling wedge that's developing, but there's no sign of a breakout just yet. If we are bearish after PCE data comes out, we have to lose 521. If that's the case, we're going to be coming down to about 518 to 517. If we're bullish, you want to see a breakout, you want to see it basically break this resistance and push towards 526. I personally favor that with this downtrend being established on SPY, there's going to be an attempt to break out, and I think we might be looking for a push back up to these higher levels towards this imbalance up here. I think that's a bit more probable because PCE is likely going to be decent just like CPI, but I can't promise that as it depends on different factors. There are lots of shorts expiring, so there's a chance we might get a squeeze, but I can't promise anything as it depends on the data and such. So let's see what PCE data gives us, but make sure you're prepared for anything, and just know that there's a little bit more of a higher probability that we see some upside. For Nvda, We have 1090 to 20 EMA as support. If we lose 1090, we have a gap to fill all the way down to 1068. If we break past 1100, we're going to be pushing all the way up to about 1125. I personally think that we're in the middle right now. We have to wait and see what the reaction is. If we get a bounce, we're going to be looking for a move back up. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. The QQQ, we're dipping quite a bit. We're at key support. I did call out 450 yesterday if we lost 453. That's exactly what happened as I predicted. And we are at the target that we had at 450. If we are bullish tomorrow and we get a bounce off PCE data, look for 455 plus. If we're bearish, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 448 and 446 to fill our gap. I am in the middle with this, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see what the data gives us. For Bitcoin is trying to rebound a bit. We have resistance at 68,800 and also around the 69,000 area. We have support at 68,200. If we lose that, we're going to be dipping down to the 67,000 range. As of right now, it's showing some strength. If we hold the support right here, we could actually try to push higher towards 69,000. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. For Apple stock, Apple's on a very, very nice uptrend right over here. Let me just close these up. As you guys can see, these are the levels to be watching for. We have our 50 EMA going to be at one key support and also our 20 EMA. Watch 190.6 as support. If we lose that, look for 189. If we hold support, look at 192 as resistance. Then we're going to be looking for a push for 190, the 194 area if we do end up breaking out. What do I favor? We could dip a bit towards 190.6 and try to bounce higher and start pushing for 192.75. That looks a bit more probable, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. All right, so that is it for the main five I typically talk about, guys. Let's talk about something else. I've been saying that NEO has upside potential today. We're up 9% for the day, so we did get a nice push on NEO, and you could have made some crazy gains if you did end up following my play. In my personal opinion, we could actually cool off just a little bit on this trend right here. Could dip a little bit before we try to continue higher, maybe after PCE. The chart still looks bullish, and I think that for either tomorrow or Monday, there's likely more upside coming, especially as deliveries data is coming out, and there's going to be a lot of optimistic investors. So we'll see how things go. The chart still favors the upside. By the way, guys, I went over all the tickers I wanted to go over in more detail. Now I just want to favor and kind of talk about the rest of the charts in a much more concise manner. So with that being said, let's now focus on Palantir. Palantir has resistance at this 21.89 area, and we have support currently at 21.35. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip a little bit and then try to continue higher as the chart is gaining some strength. So this does look like a double bottom and does favor upside, but just to be safe, we'll see what PCE data gives us. For super micro, looking a little bit more weak. If we lose 800, we're going to be dipping all the way down to support at 770 basically. If we end up breaking past, if we hold 800, look for a bounce for 830. If that breaks, we're going to be looking for basically the 850 area. In my personal opinion, I think that super micro looks a little bit more bearish. But that's just technicals alone. That's not going to be sufficient. We'll see if PCE data helps this bounce for 831 plus. I'm in the middle with this because technicals do look kind of weak, but PCE data could get in the way and that could kind of trump these technicals, leading to a little bit of a bounce. So I'll be very open-minded. I'll give this some time and see how things end up going. And with that being said, we'll wait and see how things end up paying forward. So that's going to be very important to see. Let's hope we get a bounce right here. Looking at something like Rivian. Rivian came down to our target of 10 and actually starts to rebound today for a very bullish day with lots of bullish news. We also have a nice inverse head and shoulders going into the month of June. So this looks a little bit more bullish and does favor more upside in my personal opinion. So we have a nice accumulation structure. I think we're going to push a little bit higher. Look for a back test of resistance right over here, which is now going to become support at 10.7, then a bounce all the way up towards about the 11s. Like 11.4 is another strong possibility. So a dip and a bounce is a strong possibility. I favor that a bit more. For SoFi, we're going to be looking at resistance around this 6.9 area than $7. We have a nice double bottom like structure, but I do favor it trying to go up to 7. So that looks a little bit more probable in my personal opinion for SoFi. For the IWM Russell 2000, I mentioned to everyone that this thing might either try to bounce off 202 close to that area, or we dip towards 200 and then get the bounce. I wasn't sure which one it would be. Instead, we got the bounce from here. In my intraday video, I said it's going to likely fill the gap, and that's what happened. So I was correct about that. And the 4 hour is showing some life. Now we came up, and just notice this. So we had this high here. We came down, lower high, came down, came down to lower high again, came down, lower high. If we come down and establish a higher low, this could be a shift that the trend is shifting. And then this could start to bounce back up to higher levels if we do end up getting a shift and we establish a higher low. So I'm going to be watching for that going into tomorrow. I think it could dip a little bit towards 203 and try to rebound for 205. If that breaks, look at 207. If we lose 203, look for a dip all the way down to 202 all over again. My guts tells me it's going to dip a bit, then try to bounce as the most likely possibility. But just to be safe, let's see what PCE data gives us. For AMD, this looks pretty decent because we look bullish overall. This chart is bullish. Look at the nice inverse head and shoulders on AMD. It does favor more upside, but we have to hold key support at 163.8. If we hold 163.8, we're going to be bouncing back up easily to about 170. If we lose 163.8, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 160. My gut tells me it's going to test that and try to bounce and start pushing up for about 170. I favor that a little bit more. For ARM is kind of dipping. If we lose support at 118, we're going to be looking for a test of 115.5. If we hold 118, and by the way, I think we're still going to bounce regardless of that. So if we hold 118, look for a bounce. If we dip a little bit more, look for 115.5 and then a bounce. Either way, I think a bounce is very probable. That's the way I wanted to word that. So a bounce is coming to ARM. We could dip first, then bounce, or just bounce from here, depending on PCE from a technical standpoint. That's looking more probable. We will see what PCE gives us, but technicals do show a bounce is likely going to come. For Coinbase has a nice structure, in my personal opinion. We actually have a nice little uptrend being established right over here. If we break this resistance around 246, we're going to be looking for a bigger push for about 258, and it looks bullish overall. Now, I'm going to be looking at this test of 234. If we lose that, we'll be looking at 230. We'll see if we get a bounce or not, but that's going to be key for how we end up moving. We also have resistance around this 245 to 250 area. We could dip and then try to bounce or even bounce from here, depending on PCE. But the odds favor a bounce is the most likely possibility. We'll see what happens with other factors. For Amazon, my personal opinion is actually looking at 177. If we end up continuing to dip, we'll be looking at a 176.5 to 177. If we bounce from right here, we'll be looking for a pushback above our 200 EMA at 180.88. It looks kind of weak right now on the 4-hour. It does look very weak right now. But just to be safe, we'll see if PCE data helps this bounce. I personally think that technicals show it might dip a little bit more before it tries to bounce. But we'll see how it reacts to PCE. For Meta, we're looking a little bit weak right now. There's a little head and shoulders like structure developing right here. When I zoom out like this, you guys can also see that this is resembling, it kind of looks like a little bearish structure right here, but nothing is guaranteed because sometimes these are traps. So, the best thing I would say is watch for confirmation. We have support around 462. If we lose that, there's going to be a bigger dip all the way down to our previous resistance. If we bounce off this, look for a test of about 472 and see which way we end up going. There is a head and shoulders, so it does favor downside as a strong possibility. But just to be safe, we will wait and see. For Microsoft, we're actually looking a little bit weak right over here. If we end up losing this 413 area, there's going to be a bigger dip coming down towards like 406. If we bounce off 411, we're going to be looking for a test of 415 after that. So I'll be watching to see which way we end up going. For Google, we're looking a little bit more bearish right now. So we have this test of about 173. If we bounce off this, we'll look for 175. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 170. In my personal opinion, I think that we're on a bit of a downtrend and Google's looking a little bit weak. But if the buyers step in and they try to get us back above 175 after PCE, then we could turn back to bullish. So it all depends on the data. We're at previous resistance becoming support right now. We're at support on Google, so we'll have to see how things go. For GME, if we're bullish, we want to see it break past 22.5. If that breaks, look for 25. If you reject here, we're going to be dipping back down towards 20. It is looking like it wants to rebound a little bit, so I'm hoping we get a little rebound thanks to PCE back up to 25. But just to be safe, watch for confirmation. It does have some potential. AMC is in a danger zone. We're barely at 4.14. I did call a downside move yesterday. If we bounce off 4.14, look for 4.6. If we lose 4.14, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 4 or lower levels. So we'll give this some time. DJT is dipping up quite a bit because of a lot of occurrences right now. We're currently at 49. If we bounce off this, we're going to be pushing towards 50 plus. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards 45. I'm seeing some weakness from a technical standpoint, so we might see a gap down tomorrow, most likely, regardless of PCE. And we'll see if we could hold above 49 or not. That's going to be key. The VIX has been pumping quite a bit, but for the last couple of days, it's been kind of trading sideways. If we get a rejection, we do have two gaps to fill, and this could be because the market's going to bounce soon. So we'll see what the VIX ends up doing. For the 10-year treasury yield, we pushed quite a bit because of the Fed. Now we have these gaps to fill, so we'll see if this tips or not. We'll be waiting for more pieces of data like PCE that might affect how that ends up looking. And also, the dollar is currently at resistance around 104.78. We'll see if it rejects or not. But regardless of what happens, as we're at resistance, we will see how this ends up affecting the markets. So, with that being said, guys, as far as Tesla goes, Tesla has a lot of potential for the medium term, but for the short term, it's going to be heavily dependent on PCE. Technicals do favor. They're very mixed. We do have a bearish pattern with the head and shoulders, but sometimes these could be traps. So it doesn't guarantee anything. And for the shorter term technicals, we still are showing strength as Tesla held up very well compared to the market. So this could be a trap, and Tesla may attempt to push higher tomorrow. That is looking a little bit more probable to me. But just to be safe, let's wait and see what PCE data gives us. Okay. So wait and see what PCE gives us. That's going to be key for tomorrow. And we'll see how things go tomorrow morning. All right. Although a lot of charts look like they want to bounce, always be prepared for anything, and we'll see how things go. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great evening. Have a great night, or wherever you are and whatever time it is. Please just take care, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you for listening. Tesla's to the moon because the long term is still incredibly bright despite the short term fluctuations. And peace out.